after you've picked the site at which your garden is going to be put at, the next thing you're going to need is a garden plan. Well, what is a garden plan and how do we make one? Well, that's what I'm here to talk about today. My name is Calvin Gardner, and I work with the University of Florida IFAS Extension, Orange County. And I believe that there are three really crucial elements you're going to need for your garden plan. And they're very simple. It's what are you going to plant, when are you going to plant it, and where are you going to plant it. And so follow me throughout this video as we use some of the resources that we have at the University of Florida to be able to plan an accurate gardening plan throughout the season.
And welcome to the virtual portion of this video where we are going to be unpacking the Florida Vegetable Gardening Guide to be able to figure out what to plant, when to plant, and where we're going to put our plants. Now, the Florida Vegetable Gardening Guide is a publication that the University of Florida produced on vegetable gardening. It has a slew of information, and today we're only going to be using a few different tables. But you can find this publication online if you search Florida Vegetable Gardening Guide, or you can find it in the comments below. Now, what to plant? First, we want to learn the variety to plant. Now, what is a variety? Well, a variety is a plant that's been produced in cultivation by selective breeding for specific climates. Let's take arugula, for instance. Arugula is a vegetable that you can grow, leafy green, that you can grow in your garden. It has several different genetic varieties that allow it to thrive in different climates. For instance, there's an arugula that probably does much better in colder climates, and there's an arugula that does much better in warmer climates. Now, we want to be selecting the things that do better in warmer climates with more humidity and more rain, and often just more heat all around. So, how do we figure that out? Well, the University of Florida has this table on page 8 that allows you to select what varieties work best in Florida. Now, it's not an exhaustive list, but you can certainly find what you're looking for as a start. So if I'm looking to buy arugula seeds, I would go online and I would type in arugula and I would follow it with its recommended variety names. Let's say arugula speedy. And hopefully it will pull up vendors that are reputable that I could purchase those seeds from. Now, after you've figured out what variety of plants you want and all the different kinds of vegetables you want to grow, then you're going to need to look at planting date. And planting date is vital. You can find planting dates on page 6 of this publication. Now, why is planting dates vital? Because it avoids most of the issues that many people face throughout the garden. If you plant at the right time, you're going to be planting in the correct temperature, and you're going to be avoiding certain kinds of pest pressures that come along with planting in the wrong temperature as well. So I highly suggest that right after finding a variety, you want to make sure you're finding the right planting date for the crops that you are picking. But how do we find the exact planting date? Well, we look at this table on page 6 and we locate where we're located in Florida. I'm located in Central Florida. So I'll look at that and say I want to grow bush beans. So looking at bush beans, it says that they can grow anytime between February through April or August through September. Now, why is that? Because bush beans don't like to be too hot or too cold. So they have two different seasons where the weather is relatively moderate. If we look just one step above bush beans at arugula, arugula doesn't mind being planted anytime between September through March. That should key us into understanding that it's okay that arugula gets cold. What it doesn't want to get is very hot. So we want to figure out, if it's a relatively hot September, maybe we're going to plant later in September. If we know that spring's going to get real warm real quick, we may not want to wait until planting arugula at the very end of March. We might want to plant at the very beginning of March. So we give ourselves a little bit of margin of error with our microclimates that we find ourselves in. Now, once you figure out when you're going to be planting these things, then you want to figure out where you're going to put them in your garden. And so I'd like to offer this quote from Mel Bartholomew. He's the creator of square foot gardening, which is a method where you take the same plant and you see how many of those plants you can put into 1 square foot comfortably and allowing them to grow healthily. And then you use this method to map out your garden and have an efficient use of garden space. With that being said, this is one of the most common questions I get when people are talking about where they want to put their plants. They ask me, how much space do I need? So I give them this quote, which says, One 4-foot by 4-foot square foot garden box equal to 16 square feet will supply enough produce to make a salad for one person every day of the growing season. One more 4-foot by 4-foot box will supply the daily supper vegetables for that person. Just one more 4-foot by 4-foot box will supply that person with extra of everything for preserving special crops, showing off, or giving away. Now, this is under the context that you are using square foot gardening, but it is a great start to if you're picking how many garden beds you need or where you're going to put these plants. I often suggest to people that they take one 4-foot by 8-foot bed for each person they're trying to provide vegetables for. So once you're using the square foot gardening method, you can actually use the page 6 table that we've already visited to be able to figure out how many plants can go in 1 square foot. So you can find the very center of this table where it says plants per 10 square feet. It will give you a number. If you just take that number and divide it by 10, then you will get how many of those plants you can put in a single square foot. So for arugula, it says 30 to 40. Divide that by 10, you can put 3 to 4 plants per square foot. With that being said, there's a little caveat here that this is based on our table. The square foot gardening method often pushes this to the limits. So you can see on garden plans where you can shove a lot of plants into 1 square foot, but you want to make sure that you're taking good care of them. And it's always best to give it a margin of error instead of just putting as many plants as you can put into 1 square foot. Let's look at another example here. Let's look at broccoli. Broccoli says you can put 8 to 12 plants per 10 square feet. So we divide that by 10 and we get 0.8 and 1.2. So that means we're only going to put 1 plant in 1 square foot. But don't stop there. 1 broccoli plant gets really big, and that's why only 1 can go in 1 square foot. That being said, if you're going to plant broccoli, you should plant all of the broccoli next to each other because they're all going to get big and they won't really bother each other. But if you plant 1 broccoli next to 3 to 4 arugula, the broccoli has a chance to shade out the arugula and even cover it up. So we want to avoid that. So any plant that you find on this list that has a 1 plant per square foot, you want to make sure that you are planting those plants all next to each other so the smaller plants do not get shaded out. And finally, once you do that, you can actually create a really cohesive garden layout. Now, this is a 4-foot by 4-foot bed made into a square foot gardening model. So each one of these squares equals 1 square foot. And you can see where I can load in all of the different plants that will fit well into this garden. And I can plan out my garden bed for the season. Now, with that being said, we want to avoid, like I said, on the right side, we want to make sure all these 1 plant per square foot plants fit into the siding. And then all of our smaller stuff continues to move and stay kind of close to each other so they're not shading each other out. This is just one way that you can plant a vegetable garden bed, but it seems to be one of the most effective ways to grow in a highly urbanized environment. Now you know a bit more about how to plan a vegetable garden, especially what to plant, when to plant it, and where to plant it. If you have any other questions about garden planting, please feel free to reach out to your local county extension or reach out to a Master Gardener volunteer. We'd be happy to help you out with your garden planting experience. Thank you and have a great day.